What I really enjoyed was you talking about your dad. I think.
Yeah, I don't talk about my dad.
It was just so. It was so because I was asking you what books he was reading you, and
he was reading 50 Shades of Grey to me. I was. I don't think you can kill off the popular characters.
Yes,
you need to kill off the people actually that you already don't like very much. Otherwise, I think kids would get upset. Obviously, Dilly is not murdered. No. That would be horrible. And nor is her dog, so don't worry.
Weren't you in one of the Agatha Christie?
I was.
Can you remember which
Partners
one?
in Crime. Yes, I can remember which one. I'm 53, not 103.
Matt Lucas was here a couple of weeks ago.
Sorry, who's that?
He's a guy who...
Did he used to be on some show?
Didn't he used to be something?
Yeah, no, actually, I saw him today.
He was saying that you're looking at new material for...
Yes, we are. We just had a meeting with Netflix, which is very exciting. My son has started quoting things from Come Fly With Me.
Well, how's that going?
I'm
really curious to see how you're going to do A Little Britain in 2024. The idea that everyone can be quite easily offended by a character.
Are you offended?
By you, yes.
Virgin Radio.
Today's guest is a beloved comedian. He's an actor, he's a television personality, he's a children's author, he's an all-rounder. I'm just going to get straight down to business and say welcome, David Walliams. What a pleasure to see you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Here we go again, eh?
Yes.
Another children's book, another interview. Well, last time I saw you was we had a cup of tea.
Yes, you came round to my house, you met my son.
That's very kind of you.
Did you like him?
Not only did I like him, from the moment the door opened and he answered the door, you always speak so lovingly of him, but he opened the door as almost my host, you know. He was sent to say bring in the Irish chap at the door, and sure enough he came to the door. What a charming...
I know, he is a charmer, isn't he? He likes to be the waiter.
Does he?
When I have guests and things like that, he likes going around sort of pouring glasses of wine for people and stuff like that. It's so sweet.
But that's really good for their confidence.
I feel like it, and it's important, I think, he's an only child, so I think, you know, it's good to be able to hold your own in the adult world.
Yeah.
Although I wouldn't really class you as an adult, but, you know, the world of like grown-ups.
Well, you know, he was able to hold his own socially, and I thought that was real credit to your one's folks, to you, and
Thank you.
And I think it's really lovely. And he also seemed to be interested. I think that's a great gift. That
he pretended to be interested, but he was very good at it.
Like his father. He is his father's son. It's a gift to be able to pretend to be interested.
Yeah, he was genuinely interested.
No, it was a pleasure to me, and thank you for that. And I really enjoyed seeing you in the wild.
Thank you.
And you're still walking your dogs in the local.
I've been released back into the wild.
But I think your son is a muse. He must be some class of muse for writing books as well, is he? I mean,
he's a personality and he's creative, and he comes up with lots of ideas that I can use in my books. So he's often, we're walking in the park, he loves coming up with ideas. He doesn't want to actually sit and write them, which, you know, actually is believe it or not, is the hard part. But ideas are great, and as you know, it's like, I always think, without the idea, you can't grow the tree of the story.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and so you can't really start writing until you've had a good idea.
One of the last times we spoke was for the Bookshelf podcast, which and what I got back from that were people saying they just saw a side to you they hadn't seen or heard before, and I was funny. They've never seen it. Do you know, David, there's a first time for everything, isn't there? And what I really enjoyed was you talking about your dad, I think, and I don't
talk about my dad.
Well, it was just so. It was so. Could you remind people? Because I was asking you what books he was reading you, and
he was reading 50 Shades of Grey to me. I was. No, he was reading Dr. Seuss, Green Eggs and Ham.
Yeah.
And I just remember, it's a very happy memory of me lying on my dad's chest, and I think he had his pajamas on or something like that, so kind of his hairy chest was sort of, you know, out. And I just remember because I think Dr. Seuss is quite dreamy and sort of nightmarish, and because you're in some weird world where things keep on being repeated.
Well, thing one and thing two, literally things.
Yeah, things keep growing and kind of getting more and more absurd. And I just remember that sort of being in that world and loving all those creatures and loving my dad reading to me. So it's something that, you know, as a parent, I've certainly done a lot with my son. And he still likes us reading a book together.
Is that right? That's really, because he's 10? He's 11. So, but he still likes that.
Yeah, well, we'll sit and like, you know, cuddle on the sofa, and he'll read a chapter, I'll read a chapter, that kind of stuff. It's the only way I can force him to read my books.
Sit down now, it's reading time, whether you like it or not. Let's move on to the reason you're here today, which is to talk about Super Sleuth.
To see you.
And also to talk about Super Sleuth.
Yes.
Which is... I love this. This is because you don't live a million miles away from Baker Street, which is very appropriate because you're into the realm of Sherlock Holmes and Arthur Conan Doyle. And I think that you've really brought all of that to this beautiful book. Will you tell us about it? And
well, it's a murder mystery. Yeah. It's set on a cruise liner at the end of the 1920s, and it's a cruise liner going from America to England. So it's a week-long trip, and on the first night of the boat setting sail, the most famous detective in the world is murdered. And so there's a little girl called Dilly who's on the ship, who is a sort of amateur detective, would like to be a detective, read lots of detective novels, and she has to solve the murder. But of course, this being a murder mystery, there's not just one dead body. Yeah, they keep piling up, and all the kind of world's most famous detectives start descending on this ship, and one by one they meet grisly ends. So I was really pleased with it. It was hard to do because I don't have a scientific mind. If you read Agatha Christie, you can see, she's not greatly interested in character. She's created some amazing characters, but she's it's almost like a scientific equation, isn't it? How she created all these plots that are genuinely surprising, shocking, interesting, and so you kind of, with the murder mystery, you have to plot it out like in a scientific way. Once I'd done that and I realised that there weren't any plot holes, only then could I get going, because I thought, what's going to happen is I'm going to get to the end of the book and someone's going to point out some massive plot hole. And they will. And they will. Thank you. But no, not in your book. People love to. Yeah, of course. Do you know what I'm saying? Kids love to sort of. Well, kids should really play detective as they read along. Yeah. But I've got a twist in my book, Space Boy, and some boy came up to me and said, I really enjoyed Space Boy. I said, did you guess the twist? He went, yeah, I did. Oh, that's a shame. Yeah, I guessed it the second time I read it. So whether that will happen with Super Sleuth, I don't know. But I suppose one of the things I was curious about is, how do you, I don't know if it's about pitching it or how. It is about pitching it either to the publishers or to yours or to the kids. There's a body count. There's dead people. How do you make that less grisly? They die in funny ways, really. Yeah. Like the first detective, he dies in a giant vat of blancmange. Yeah. And that's how I kind of got round it, because I know if people were like shot or something, it'd be horrible. But it's not about that. Everyone, someone dies under a pile of books, you find them frozen. Yeah. So it's fun death. Well, yeah, as deaths go. But no, it's sort of cartoony. Yeah. And the thing is also, you realise when you read Agatha Christie again or Sherlock Holmes, there's no emotion. No one's ever really upset that anyone has died, are they? No. Oh, jolly good. Let's try and solve the murder. And it was like, oh no, they're dead. And nothing a pot of tea won't sort out in the end. And also, I don't think you can kill off the popular characters. Yes, you need to kill off the people actually that you already don't like very much. Otherwise, I think kids would get upset. Obviously, Dilly is not murdered. No. That would be horrible. And nor is her dog, so don't worry. Watson. Yeah, her dog's called Watson, and she's a kind of amateur sleuth and has read all the Sherlock Holmes and Agatha Christie's. Yeah, it was a lovely world to be in. And when you've written as many books as I have, 178, that's just today, you need to make sure you're doing something different every time. I'm not trying to write a series. I love series, like Harry Potter or Horrid Henry or whatever, but I wanted to do something each time, and actually stepping into a different time frame. I love that. Is great. Yeah. A different setting and a different genre. So immediately kind of my brain was firing with lots of ideas I hadn't had before. So I was happy that I'm very happy how it's turned out, and I'm happy it's something new. Did you weren't you in one of the Agatha Christie? I was. Can you remember which Partners in Crime? Yes, I can remember which one. I'm 53, not 103. The toilet's just down on the left. Can you remember when you were on the TV? Was I? Yeah, you were on TV. Well, I was in an episode of Marple, the very first one when it came back, which I really enjoyed. And I was also in a thing called Murder Mystery, which is an Adam Sandler, Jennifer Aniston Netflix movie. Yes. But I die in the first 5 minutes. well, 10 minutes maybe. And because of that, I've never seen the whole film.
Yeah. You're gone at 15 minutes.
I have no idea who murdered me.
Yeah.
But all I know is I'm dead after 10 minutes. Now that was like the best job I've ever had in my life, because we were in like Portofino in Italy filming, and Adam Sandler and Jennifer Aniston take you out for dinner, and then the next table is Cher, and you meet her, and it was fabulous. I was really sad. I wish I could have lasted, like, still been alive at the end of the movie, because it was the best job ever.
What about you, obviously with Super Sleuth, you go into that world. You mentioned Agatha Christie, and bouncing back a bit to, and the Sherlock Holmes and all that. Were they books you were reading as a kid, or films you were watching?
I'm going to be really honest. I was more watching the movies. I did read them too, but the first really encounter. I mean, I love the Sherlock Holmes Basil Rathbone films, and then there was an incredible series on ITV which starred Jeremy Brett. I mean, it was done so beautifully. I mean, they took it all so seriously, and they did it with huge expense, I imagine. And then at the same time, there was all those amazing Agatha Christie movies like Murder on the Orient Express, which I think was the first one I saw. I found that really chilling.
Yes,
because it takes its start from the abduction and ultimate murder of a child.
It's like the Lindbergh baby type thing.
Yes,
and
she was inspired by something. Agatha Christie was inspired by something that happened. Anyway, I remember watching it with my sister. We watched it as a family.
Yeah,
and you know, I never ever guessed the twist, and I was chilled by it.
Yeah, and it was, but also so kind of well acted in your Albert Finney. I think
it's done properly. It's done properly, and it's not done because, you know, there's a sort of Agatha Christie way of doing things where it's almost like you're sort of sending it up, and it wasn't that at all. Yeah, you know, it's dark, and I found that very compelling. They got a bit hammy every now and again with if Peter Ustinov was going off in one. It went a little bit more comic, but
lovely Sunday afternoon viewing.
Yes, and then and so Sherlock Holmes I love. I mean, Sherlock Holmes is different. It's not always murder mysteries.
Yeah.
But I love that. I just love that the era, the Victorian era is just always exciting, from Charles Dickens right up to like Arthur Conan Doyle, isn't it? It's there's danger on the streets, isn't there? And it feels modern. It doesn't quite feel, you know, like something from like 300 years ago. It seems very opaque now. But something Victorian times, it just feels, it's urban, isn't it? You get these amazing larger-than-life characters. But yeah, I love those, and also I loved reading the Sherlock Holmes as well. And I've read quite a lot of Agatha Christie's, but there are about 100 of them. I haven't read them all.
But no, that must have been lovely for you to, as you say, inhabit this world then for Super Sleuth, just to kind of unleash that insight, and also because you can go, because it's for kids, there's a more joyful side to it.
And also, I mean, in all likelihood, this might be the very first encounter a child has with any kind of murder mystery, because it's not a genre you normally associate with kids, is it? And unless they've seen a film on TV, if you're like 8, 9 or 10, it's unlikely you've read the Sherlock Holmes or Agatha Christie. But it feels like a very quintessentially British thing as well.
Yeah, and you say
not to forget Irish people, but I'm just saying, it just feels like the two really kind of most famous players in this were both British.
I noticed from your Instagram when I'm creeping on you that you're spending a lot of time over in Australia, is that right?
Well, I did a tour of Australia and New Zealand.
Yes.
I went to Tasmania. It's part of Australia, but I went there too. And I was there for 6 weeks, and I was doing a show for grown-ups in the evening and shows for families, so a sort of book show during the day. And I had the most marvellous time, because I hadn't been in front of an audience like that for a while. And sometimes it was kind of big audiences, like, 3,000 seaters. I mean, they only have 7 or 8 people there, but still, it was a big theatre. And it was just very, I mean, have you been to Australia?
Never, weirdly. Okay. No, I'd love to go.
They're up for a laugh.
Are they?
Yes.
They're kind of cheeky.
They're cheeky. Yeah. They're not too worried about kind of all the things that kind of make people a bit censorious or anything like that.
Okay.
The people are just having a good time, and the shows went really well.
Yeah.
And sometimes I was doing 2 family shows a day, and sometimes I'd be in the theatre for 14 hours a day.
That sounds like
which was a long time. I do an 11 o'clock for the kids, a 3 o'clock for the kids, and then a sort of 7:30 for the grown-ups. But one funny thing is that some people booked for the wrong show because they got confused. And so I did hear a baby crying in the 7:30 show at night. And it wasn't like, it was a bit rude. It wasn't like disgusting or anything, but we were discussing, Come Fly With Me in Little Britain and various other things like that. And just seeing kids there, I was like, oh my God. I mean, because the thing is also, you can pick them out in the audience, and once it's been established that there's an 8-year-old there, you do a bit of material which is kind of a bit off-color, and go, oh my God, what must they be thinking? And the audience loved that. So I had a great time. I'd love to go back, actually. And we did the Little Britain live tour there in 2007, and it went fantastically well. They love British culture, and I'm Irish to some extent, but they really love British culture. So it's a great home. If you especially for comedy, they love British comedy.
Matt Lucas was here a couple of weeks ago.
Sorry, who's that?
He's a guy who
did he used to be on some show?
Didn't he used to be something?
Yeah, no, actually, I saw him today.
Did you?
We just had we just had a meeting, so we met up before.
He was saying that you're looking at new material for.
We are.
And how's that going?
Great. We just had a meeting with Netflix, which was very exciting. And apparently they've got a wonderful buffet there. But we didn't stay for lunch, unfortunately.
And have you committed anything to paper ideas-wise yet?
They have you can have 3 meals a day at Netflix. You can come and it's a serve yourself, so you can pile that plate high. And they have breakfast there. Everyone there must put on weight. You can have breakfast. You can have 3 meals a day.
A lot of fat backs there, I'd say.
Very fat. Of course. We've got a few ideas that we're developing, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
And so we want to do something on stage. We want to do something as a podcast that we've just started working on, and obviously we want to do something on TV.
Great.
And then there was some other exciting news on Friday, which is my children's book Thing. Is progressing as a movie.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and so they're putting a cast together for that. So we're filming that in Australia next year.
And you'll be there in it?
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be in it.
I love that you're in
a minor role.
Yeah.
I can't be trusted with a major role. I'm not good enough. But no, I'll be in it too, and that is very exciting.
I love that.
Because like movies and things, it takes years to get these things going.
I love the film versions of your books as well.
Oh, yeah,
I think they're charming. They're great.
They came out very well, and the great thing is, I think if you get something right for kids, they become evergreens.
Yeah.
Because what happens around Christmas time, the BBC put everything back on iPlayer, so lots of kids are watching it. And the other thing is, when kids like something, they don't watch it once; they watch it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. So kids often come up and quote things to me.
Right.
And I don't really know where it's from, because they've seen it 10 times and I haven't seen it for like 5 years or something. Yeah. My son has started quoting things from Come Fly With Me.
Well, how's that going?
See, I didn't show him anything, because I thought, not because I'm not, I just think, oh right, okay, you need to sit down and watch what daddy's stuff. I didn't want to do that, but obviously he's now school age where they're all talking about it and sharing it.
They'll find it.
Yeah. So, but it's and he's into it. But it's interesting how that generation and sort of teenagers are actually getting into things like Little Britain and Come Fly With Me, lots of sketch comedy, because they can share it as clips.
Yes. It suits that.
Yeah, it suits that, and also no one's really. People are doing great work now, but very few people are doing sketch shows. Very few people are doing characters. There's lots of comedy dramas which are fantastic, some sitcoms, but there's nothing like that. And so it's also great that it's still making people laugh.
I think one of the challenge, I'm really curious to see how you're going to do a Little Britain in 2024, for the obvious. I don't need to get into the culture wars, but just the idea that everyone can be quite easily offended by a character.
Are you offended?
By you, yes. Twice you've made reference to my cultural heritage. I've wanted to defenestrate you from the moment you sat down.
I've tried to come in and offend you. That's the thing.
Well, you've succeeded.
Well, it's a weird one, isn't it?
To hell with this interview.
Offence, shock and offence.
Yes, which you're very good at.
Very good. Can be actually quite exciting and fun. You know the filmmaker Roger Waters?
Yes.
Who made all those sort of bad taste films with Divine?
Yeah.
He was talking about that. And there's a scene in one of the... Do you know the most infamous thing in one of the films? I mean, I don't really know. It's a bit rude, but basically Divine follows this dog round.
Yes.
And then when the dog does its business, Divine eats the
business.
Yeah. And... if that isn't setting out to shock and offend people, I don't know what is.
Where do we go from there, eh?
Yeah. And, the comedy I grew up with, if it's Mel Brooks or Monty Python, it's like, I loved being shocked. I mean, offence is a bit of a different thing, isn't it? And as a white, middle-aged man, I guess there's lots of things that you're just kind of, things don't offend you in the same way as they might if you were going to member of a minority group. But at the same time, I think comedy's got to be playful. Yeah. And the thing is, if you're worried every time you make a joke, and you know what it's like, you did this interview, you're a funny guy. Yeah, make the odd joke. You know what I mean? You have half a second to decide. You made a joke just last year.
I did make a joke last year. I'm still living off the fat of it, and I enjoyed myself tremendously. We both did.
But you have half a second to decide whether the thing you're going to say, you should say it or not, right?
David, I have 2 shows here. One off air, one on air. The off air show, when I'm chatting to behind the scenes, unbroadcastable. The on air show,
again,
good morning,
unbroadcastable, really. Well, certainly shouldn't be broadcast, but it is.
Anyway, please, thanks for coming in.
I'm not going yet. I've got to make your life a bit more of a misery.
Well, I'm enjoying your last appearance on the show.
Yeah,
I hope you are too.
Me too. I can't wait to not come back.
See, me too. There you go again. You're just a human hashtag.
I'm seeing you in Iceland.
We are.
We're both going to Iceland.
That'll be fun.
To a sort of what would you call it? It's Iceland Noir Festival.
Book festival. Yeah.
So it's Iceland Noir, which in Iceland, lots of there's lots of
death and alcohol.
There's lots of books about murder. For some reason, it's kind of his own genre. Yeah. Being set in Iceland, and we're both going there. Can I just say,
it's great fun. I was there last year.
Okay, I'm going,
and I had a great time. I got invited before you did. So
sorry, this is my interview.
I enjoyed it immensely.
I'm going because I've written a murder mystery book. What is the what's possible purpose would you have going there other than to try and get a free holiday?
Well, who will you be talking to about your book, for example? What type of person might you talk to about the book? The wall?
The millions of people in the audience. Yes, you're interviewing me, aren't you?
Well, somebody is interviewing somewhere along the way. We do have a role in life, people like me, would you believe? We'll leave it there, will we?
Anyway, dear, this is very fun.
It's a horror show. Super Sleuth is your latest book by David Walliams. Is there anything else? Because you're a busy man. You've got Netflix series going along. You've got a movie going along. You've got books going along. Anything else you'd like to report?
I'm
legal.
Selling a couple of second-hand cars, which I'd like to promote here. There's some stuff on eBay, some stuff I was given. There's a couple of your books that I'm trying to get rid of as well. But that's tough.
You'll never get rid of that.
That's tough.
That requires firelighters and a box of matches.
No, that's enough.
That'll do nicely.
Yeah, and it's very pleasing when people like what you do. So I already had some lovely comments from Super Sleuth, although my son did guess the murderer on page 10.
David Walliams, author of Super Sleuth and so much more besides. Good to see you as always.
Thank you very
See you in Reykjavik.
much.